Okay, so here's a question for you before we even start. Have you ever noticed that you understand a movie way better the second time you watch it, even though the words didn't change? That's actually not a coincidence, and it says something really interesting about how our brains learn language.
Ooh, I love that you're starting with that. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Joobira Zone. Today's episode is a little different. We're just going to have a natural, relaxed conversation, and you're going to listen. No pressure, no stress, just real English at a comfortable pace.
Exactly, Maya. So today isn't really about teaching a specific grammar point or vocabulary list. It's more about giving your brain a chance to absorb English the way you naturally absorbed your first language, just by hearing it.
Right, and I think that's something people underestimate. When we were kids, nobody sat us down with a grammar book before we learned to speak. We just listened again and again until it started to make sense.
That's such a good point. And I actually experienced that myself when I was learning Spanish a few years ago. I used to just put on Spanish podcasts while cooking or cleaning, even if I barely understood anything at first.
Did that actually help you?
Surprisingly, yes. At first, it was just noise to me. I couldn't catch individual words. But after a few weeks, certain words started to stand out, and eventually, whole phrases became familiar even before I officially studied them.
That's fascinating. It's like your brain was quietly building a foundation in the background, even without you actively trying to memorize anything.
Exactly. And I think that's the whole idea behind this episode. You don't have to understand every single word right now. Just relax, let the conversation flow, and let your brain do its thing.
I love that. Okay, so speaking of learning through listening, let's talk about something completely different today, traveling. Thomas, if you could go back to any trip you've taken and relive it exactly as it happened, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's such a fun question. Honestly, I think I'd choose my trip to Portugal a few years ago. There was something so relaxing about that whole experience.
What made it so special?
I think it was the pace of everything. Nobody was in a rush. People would sit at cafes for hours just talking, drinking coffee, watching the world go by. It completely changed how I think about relaxation.
That sounds amazing. I feel like some cultures really understand the value of slowing down, while others, especially where I live, are constantly rushing from one thing to the next.
Exactly. I remember sitting near the coast one evening just watching the sunset, and I thought, why don't I do this more often at home? But somehow, the moment I got back, I went straight back into rush mode.
That's so relatable. It's like travel gives us this temporary reminder to slow down, but then daily life just pulls us right back in.
Definitely. What about you, Maya? Is there a trip that really stuck with you?
Yes, actually, a trip I took to the mountains a couple of years ago. It wasn't a big, fancy vacation, just a simple cabin stay with some friends, but it's one of my favorite memories.
That sounds incredible. There's something really special about disconnecting from technology every once in a while. It's almost like your mind gets quieter.
Exactly. I think we forget how loud our daily lives are notifications, messages, constant noise until we experience real silence for a few days.
That's such a good observation. And you know, that connects a little to language learning too. Sometimes we're so busy trying to actively study that we forget the power of just quietly absorbing something, like we're doing right now with this conversation.
That's true. Passive listening, like this episode, gives your brain space to relax while still learning in the background.
Exactly. All right, let's shift topics a bit. I want to ask you something completely random. If you could instantly become fluent in any language other than English, which one would you choose?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd choose Japanese. I've always found the culture fascinating, and the language itself sounds so different from anything I know.
That's a great choice. What is it about the culture that interests you so much?
I think it's the balance between tradition and modern technology. You have centuries-old temples right next to futuristic cities, and somehow it all blends together perfectly.
That's an interesting contrast. I'd probably choose Italian, honestly. I just love how expressive the language sounds, even when people are just having a normal conversation.
That's true. Italian always sounds so passionate, even if someone is just talking about what they had for lunch.
Exactly. It's like every sentence has a little bit of drama built into it.
Okay, speaking of language and communication, here's a question I'm curious about. Do you think it's more important to focus on speaking or listening when you're learning a new language?
That's such a great question. Honestly, I think listening comes first, naturally. Before we can speak clearly, we need to train our ears to recognize sounds, rhythm, and natural pronunciation.
I completely agree. A lot of learners jump straight into speaking, which is great for confidence, but sometimes they end up repeating mistakes because they haven't trained their ears enough to notice the difference.
Right. Listening helps you absorb natural rhythm and intonation, which is something textbooks can't really teach you.
Exactly. And that's honestly the whole purpose of episodes like this one. It's not about memorizing vocabulary lists, it's about getting comfortable with the natural flow of English conversation.
I love that. All right, if you're enjoying this relaxed episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep creating more content like this.
And if you have a moment, leave a comment and tell us, do you prefer relaxed listening episodes like this one or more structured lessons with specific vocabulary and grammar? We're genuinely curious to know.
Now let's keep the conversation going. Maya, do you have a favorite way to relax after a long, stressful day?
Honestly, I love cooking. There's something really therapeutic about chopping vegetables, following a recipe, and just focusing on one simple task.
That's such a nice way to unwind. Do you have a specific dish you love making the most?
I really enjoy making soup, actually. It's simple, but there's something comforting about a warm bowl of soup, especially during colder months.
That sounds perfect. I think I'm the opposite when it comes to relaxing. I usually just put on music and go for a walk outside, especially in the evening.
That sounds really peaceful, too. Do you listen to any particular type of music when you walk?
It really depends on my mood. Sometimes calm instrumental music and other times upbeat songs that just help me clear my mind completely.
That makes sense. I think everyone has their own little ritual to reset after a busy day, whether it's cooking, walking, or even just sitting quietly with a cup of tea.
Definitely. All right, before we start wrapping up, let's talk about something a bit reflective. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's just starting to learn English, what would it be?
That's such an important question. I think my advice would be don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every mistake is actually proof that you're trying, and that's how real progress happens.
I love that answer. My advice would be a little different. Just listen more, even if you don't understand everything. Trust the process, just like we talked about earlier in this episode.
That's such a perfect way to bring the conversation full circle. Listening, patience, and consistency really are the foundation of learning any language.
Exactly. And honestly, if you've made it this far into the episode, that already shows you're building that habit right now, just by listening to us.
That's such a great point to end on. So here's our question for you, our listeners. What's one small daily habit that helps you relax or reset, just like the ones we shared today? Let us know in the comments. We always love hearing your stories.
And if you enjoyed this relaxed conversation, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with a friend who's also working on their English listening skills.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We hope this episode felt like a calm, comfortable way to practice your English.
Until next time, keep listening, keep relaxing, and remember, every conversation you understand a little bit better is real progress, even if it doesn't feel like it yet.